Chapter 15 is a thought exercise. To me, it's proof we all possess what's called an inner knowing, proof that knowledge can be derived from somewhere else. We've all heard variations of the old question, if a tree falls in the woods and no one is there, does it make a sound? The old saying presents a topic that most people believe is only for modern society to ponder, a modern society familiar with quantum mechanics, for example. It implies that perhaps only conscious observation creates reality. Forget the sound a tree makes. Does anything happen at all if no one is there to observe it? If the Einstein-Niels Bohr debates of the 1920s inspired all this quantum metaphysical philosophy, why does the famous old query go back in time so much farther than the 20th century? Did you know the genesis of this famous tree falling in the woods question, or the idea itself, can be traced back almost 250 years? Something closer to the exact question posed, at least, goes back to the 1800s. You probably have no idea where I'm going with this, so I'll just say it. Centuries before modern science, things like D-Wave and the double-slit experiment in CERN and even the Mandela effect, this tree falling in the woods question was being spread all over Earth. People were talking about it. Why? It's proof that people have been considering that none of this is real for a very, very long time. Then there's Plato's allegory of the cave that takes the concept back 2,000 years further. The human being has always pondered that his existence may be some sort of illusion. We can understand how a topic like this may be part of modern pondering, especially with catalysts to get us thinking, like the movie The Matrix. But how could this have been a conversation between, say, two privates in the Union Army sleeping in a tent in Gettysburg, or somebody on a farm 30 or 40 years before that? What would lead a person not of the modern age, who has never even heard of quantum mechanics, to think things in life may not be real? Why did it spawn so long ago, this idea, and how did the idea stay alive for centuries? Perhaps we can understand a great thinker like Plato pondering such things, but how did something like the tree question penetrate deep into Western culture hundreds of years ago? Why is the old adage known by, at a very minimum, hundreds of millions of people around the world today, if not a billion people? Something as nutty as this can only spread far and wide if we all sense a truth in it. It's likely we all have access to an inner knowing or ancient wisdom that we can tap into, and we likely did that a long time ago. How did something which on the face of it seems ridiculous get passed down across many generations that spans at least hundreds of millions of families? For those not following me, let me offer this ridiculous example. What if, 150 years ago, a man in a university lecture hall posed this question? When a farmer walks past his chicken coop, do they, the chickens, point their asses at the farmer to spite him when he's not looking? Well, that's ridiculous, I know, but follow along. So, the first time this question was ever posed, think about it, no one would have given a shit to even try to answer it. It would have never been repeated ever again. It would have immediately been forgotten. On the face of it, the tree question seems almost as dumb to someone living in, say, the 1800s that knows nothing about the electron or quantum anything. Think about it. The giant tree falls in the woods. How the hell could it not make a sound, no matter what? Who's the first person to say that? And why did the person listening to it repeat it? Just because no one is out there in the forest to hear it, the person who came up with that old saying then is proposing that there's a chance it makes no sound, and people are supposed to ponder this endlessly for a few centuries? Why would anyone back then even have cared about answering such a question, or giving it even more than a second of thought? When the question was initially posed way back when, why didn't somebody just immediately answer back with something like this? Well, my grandpappy had an oak tree fall through his cabin when we was out duck hunting. If it didn't make no sound because we weren't there, it sure did a lot of damage to his goddamn bedroom. But this crazy idea that a tree could fall and make no sound didn't go the way of the absurd chicken coop example, did it? It didn't go away at all. It spread all over the world. Why would something so dumb and impossible spread all over the world? And there was no internet or even radio back then to spread it. It had to move around orally, which is about 100 million times harder than something going viral in the internet. One explanation is there's some sort of truth in it. Truth we all sense is there, even if we don't understand it on the conscious level. For those unaware, much of the truth of this world is designed with signs and symbols to fly right past the thinking part of the brain, unnoticed. However, the symbol is understood by the subconscious and other aspects of intelligence that we all possess. Why do marketers spend all that time on unnoticed sexual subliminals, writing the word sex, for example, in the liquor bottle on the back of the magazine cover? There's a reason most people around the world have heard of the famous tree in the woods question. Actually, there's another possibility. For some reason, we know the control structure of this world needs to share the truth of reality with who or what they consider to be their livestock. Why they seem forced to do this is a topic we'll discuss later. It's possible the system itself helped propagate and spread the question of, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to hear it or witness it, does it make a sound? As mentioned, the question is so absurd, it's hard to see how it spread far and wide on its own without help. It may have gotten help, a lot of help. It may have satisfied a requirement that the control structure must share certain elements of how this world is structured to those paying attention and to those who care to connect the dots. Of course, most people don't care. If one thinks about it, there are many cases where the powers that be have taken a term, a story, or a word and propagated it worldwide for their own purposes. The word grassy knoll comes to mind. That word only seems normal because we've heard it all our lives. If the grassy patch to the right of Kennedy was called Lady Bird's Muff since 1963, it would seem completely normal to those hearing it associated with the Kennedy assassination because we've been hearing about it for 50 years. But stop to think about the strange word grassy knoll for the first time in your life. Would you or your parents ever in their life refer to a simple grass lawn or a patch of grass as a grassy knoll? What the F is a grassy knoll? Dad, pull the car over. I gotta take a pee. This is a highway, son. I can't stop. Sure you can. Just pull up to that grassy knoll there and I'll get out. Because the term grassy knoll was known to about 1 billion people on this earth, to me, it's obvious it was a system-generated term, propagated by the system for its own purposes, in this case to lay down a fairy tale story. Ground zero is another example. Sure, it seems completely normal to us now. It just rolls off the tongue. But nobody ever heard the word ground zero really prior to 9/11. It was a rare, strange term associated with a nuclear blast site. The system chose to introduce that term and chose to associate it with 9/11-2001. The results of how successful they were speak for themselves. It's a phrase that has now been included in millions of news articles for the past 20 years. Millions. Another term is active shooter. It's so commonplace today, but where the hell did that come from? If you said it came from Mount Olympus, you'd be right. Right now, the word polar vortex is being inserted into local weather reports all over the country. People over 40 say, where the hell did that concept come from? Didn't exist when I was growing up. These monster terms and concepts that propagate throughout society are put there by Mount Olympus. Of course, there are famous terms and phrases in our society where one can more easily trace the origin. Military-industrial complex, for example, can be traced right back to Eisenhower's famous speech. Wardrobe malfunction came from Janet Jackson's boob. And thinking back, who would really want to see that? Thank God at the time I was looking into a bowl of chips and salsa and not looking up at the television. Where phrases are forever linked with an event or linked with history, it likely came from the minions on high. It was planned, it was on purpose. The term was likely created and then propagated. Keep this concept in mind as you are presented with all the fake news, history, and staged events going forward. Is there a term associated with the event that is now or is becoming world famous? But when you really think about it, there's no explanation as to how the word, term, or phrase is known all over the world. This is all part of how the reality script is delivered. Part 2 of Chapter 15, and a quick note, this should only be viewed or listened to on the Quantum of Conscience YouTube channel only. Part 2, the concept of the NPC. In a video game, an NPC is a non-player character. In a Dungeons & Dragons type Xbox game, you may be controlling the dwarf with an axe. He's your sim under your control. If playing by yourself, the other people you come across in the video game, from the wizard in your party to the innkeeper you're seeking a room from, are called NPCs, or non-player characters. In every game, they have the same standing as you do, but there's no conscious control behind the actions of those characters in the game. The computer program plays these characters in the video game. They are simply running a script or a predefined algorithm offered by the game's programmers based on your own actions. Many smart people believe NPCs actually exist in this world and you interact with them. I know this sounds ridiculous to those new to this concept. Most of you listening now will not be new to this concept. I first heard the idea of the NPC from the late Dolores Cannon, who even the people in these circles call nuts. Now, I don't call anyone presenting strange and bizarre new ideas nuts. When she talked about the mitosis of the earth, I listened. I found that the normal explanations regarding this reality don't usually hold up, and only the strange theories get close to explaining what may really be going on. I've learned that just looking around one corner is never good enough in understanding this earth, which is basically at this point an insane asylum. Back to the concept of the NPC. When you move through a crowded airport, how do you know everyone is exactly the same as you are? How do you know they are, quote, just as real as you are? If you know that you're a being of spirit and consciousness, how do you know everyone else is of the same essence or stock as you? How do you know all of these people in crowds are absolutely human? As crazy as this sounds, if you've entertained that this reality script could be some sort of holographic projection, then this is a logical continuation of that theory. I assure you, if you're reading this book, you're not an NPC. Well, I guess you could be if you're like Data in Star Trek, endeavoring to become more human by reading this book, but it's unlikely an NPC would be here with us. Maybe in an NFL stadium, that's more the style of the NPC. Although I still watch some football. So, what does your personal interactions with other people tell you about how similar they are to you? How many times have you bumped into somebody in a crowd and after you say, "Excuse me," with a little bit of life in your voice, they don't even grunt back at you? In fact, most people look right past you with Bane's dull cow eyes from The Matrix. How many zombie types have you come across sitting behind some city hall desk? Must all these people be absolutely human to the same degree as you are? Maybe it's not as simple as human or not human. Maybe there are various degrees. Anything is on the table at this point. Why must it be an immutable truth that we are all the same? I'll take the concept of the NPC and propose an alternative theory. Perhaps we are all born into this realm with an equal opportunity and equal standing at our birth. You can use your opportunity here to strengthen your life force and spirit, or you can exhaust it or even lose it here through your actions. Maybe. Perhaps the lifeless people many call NPCs are people who have essentially lost their soul, or replace the word soul with whatever you choose. Maybe they've lost it over the course of many decades here, or even possibly over many lifetimes. Even if you're not Christian, we all sense that this life's actions have serious consequences. I believe that every day we can deposit something I call a soul token to strengthen our life force, or we can give a piece of ourselves away to this system that was likely set up as its very purpose to devour the pieces. This society and the powers that be who craft it drop hints of truth all around us for those who can see them. We've been conditioned, mostly through religious teaching and doctrine, that we may lose dominion over our soul after death, based on what we do here in this realm. We will lose it after death, is what I'm emphasizing here. That's what we're taught. However, we know the, quote, truths presented in this reality are never straightforward, are they?